Back with more NBA coverage, and in this one, I'll be covering the second round of the 2026 NBA draft as well as other moves. We had another major trade. A major trade take place earlier this morning, per Shams Charania, on top of other sources as well. And I will most certainly be talking about that, making that the priority. But of course, the draft took place yesterday, so I'm going to talk about those things. Of course, this second round of the draft, you will still see a few flashy prospects every now and then. Maybe some who other teams in the first round didn't necessarily consider to be optimal selections for themselves. And they might have fallen through the wayside, maybe slipped through the cracks a little bit. And they could be another team's treasure and turn into something highly valuable there. Also, of course, you're bound to find every now and then that one player from the second round that just becomes something far greater than what you expected. Your Jalen Brunsons, your Draymond Greens, those diamonds in the rough that other teams didn't have high on their scouting boards. But now, through these development systems, maybe it takes a few years, a few changes of scenery for them to finally figure it out, but maybe they turn around one day to be one of the best players at their position. Those kinds of things are always possible. The main thing about the second round of the NBA draft is really not about the flash. It's more so about the rugged quality and the substance of these players. When we get down to the brass tacks and have these conversations with you, do we walk away from the conversation understanding that you have something to immediately provide us with that can boost our chances at accomplishing whatever we may need to for this upcoming season or the years to come? Can you right away prove to us that you have what it takes to last on this team as a core piece, and the league in general as a core piece? And do we see enough value in you at the moment to maybe put you on a two-way contract, a low-level standard contract, any one of those things? Those are the questions that the teams picking in this round will be posed with several times over. And, you want to talk about trades on top of the big one that would come later on after the second round, as well as one that would actually take place during the event itself. Several times in the second round last night, did teams decide that we are going to move back? We're going to trade out of said pick, and we are going to allow another team to pick up our draft rights for this selection. No, literally, it got that bad. 29 times out of the 30 picks were all traded. 29 out of 30 of them. Only one saw a team pick at their original selection, at their original placement in the order. Only one. Now, the teams who did this had their own reasons, especially the Knicks, who, as they were going through it, you had the broadcast team talking about them trying to make sure they can stay under the second apron. And a lot of these trades for the Knicks involved cash considerations just to make up that specific bridge in the salary cap. But damn, to have so many other teams model after this, it actually ended up being insane. Players still were selected, though, don't get me wrong. You still had a chance to find some dogs. And with the 31st overall pick, which would actually be sent to the Rockets, they have the draft rights to Bruce Thornton, the point guard out of Ohio State. Now, again, I'll be briefer on some of these because, admittedly, when we get into some of the later ones, I'm not as familiar with them, and I also do want to make room for talking about this stuff in the proper way. I am very familiar with Bruce Thornton, though. Of course, the Ohio State man himself. How could you not be? A true point guard for that Ohio State team. To where the offense, pretty much through the 4 years that he was there, they mentioned that he was a 4-time captain. Meaning that literally from the time he was a freshman, he was playing, he was active, and he was the unquestioned leader of that team. The entire offense ran through him. He played in all 136 of his starts. Did not miss a single beat. En route to becoming the all-time leader in Ohio State history for scoring. After finishing up a senior season with them where he averaged 40% shooting from 3, 55% shooting from deep, and around pretty much 20 points per game, with 5.1 rebounds per and 3.9 assists per game. Just in every sense of the word, truly dominating the ball, having to, with the kind of lackluster surrounding talent that he was encountered with at Ohio State. You know, you were left with virtually no choice. Still, he did not complain, and it got Ohio State fairly set up last season. Led them all the way to March Madness, where they did meet their end in the round of 64 against TCU. Although, of course, he brought yet another display of willpower and fortitude in that game. Despite him being a smaller guard, they listed him at 5'11". The page here lists him at 6'2". Somebody's lying somewhere. Again, though, in the first round, we saw this trend of smaller guards with smaller frames still being taken and highly valued. So again, I don't think that particularly matters. And the Rockets are not in a situation where he himself will even start. Right? Like, yes, as a senior, he'll be one of the older players. But right now, the Rockets are actively playing Fred VanVleet. They are awaiting his return. And chances are that he would likely be back on the team early in the year. They're going to have to see just how healthy he is. He might not be 100%. And so that is going to be something to monitor. If that is the case, Bruce Thornton, already being a polished prospect, coming in, showing that experience, he can step right into the role and give the Rockets something that they desperately needed. They were running last season, despite the 3-point percentage and accuracy that Reed Shepherd had, the entire team, without having Fred VanVleet on that court, they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off. They genuinely did not know how to commandeer the offense in an effective enough way. They did not understand what they were doing. They were lost. Completely lost. And it's not their fault, but in a way, with every other basket they put all these eggs in, they just decided that, you know what, aside from Fred VanVleet, we're just going to focus on all these other positions. We're going to underrepresent our guard depth, and we are going to leave no room whatsoever for another stable point guard to be on this team and initiate this offense without Fred VanVleet. They lost that. Now, it's not to say that these other players don't possess talent for the Rockets at all, but you need someone else out there, and that was one of the needs they stressed on the draft board. A lead guard. What has Bruce Thornton been doing for this Ohio State offense over the past 4 years? Exactly that. And all you need Thornton to do for cheap in a lesser role, potentially as a six-man leading the second unit, is to do that for you off the bench. And hopefully, if VanVleet is still to be hurt, you at least understand that you're getting the ball in the hands of someone you can trust to make plays. More so than you can with a guy like Reed Shepherd right now, who, even with him being the same age, of course, he is still just not fully developed right now, and was coming out of college more so as a player with upside rather than a surefire thing. And you still felt those flashes, but they need instant production, and they need it now if they still want to salvage a potential championship run out of this. This is the second year of Kevin Durant's deal. They cannot fuck around with this. They have got to make something happen. With a 32nd overall pick in this draft, the Pacers had initially sent it over, and so the Grizzlies would hold full possession of it. They selected Richie Saunders, the shooting guard out of BYU. Now, I understand you're going to look at Richie Saunders, you're going to see, holy shit, this man is about to be 25 in September. Oh my goodness, he's old as shit. That man, Richie Saunders, right there, I'm telling you, if not for his injury, this BYU team, with the aforementioned rookie phenom and AJ Debonsa, probably would have gotten very far. Before he got hurt last season in 25 games, he averaged 18 points per, as well as 2.1 assists per game and 5.8 rebounds per game on 48.9% shooting from the field and 37.6% shooting from deep. For his career, he averaged 38.7% shooting at BYU. And he was a part of a roster that actually, weirdly enough, they ascended heavily during his time there. BYU came from the West Coast Conference, and by the end of his career, they were established Big 12 juggernauts. Part of that is due to what he was producing on the basketball court. Not only as a sharpshooter on the outside, but genuinely as a rebounder down low for his size. Like, you can question that if you want to, but the 6'5" frame does not lie, and he is willing to use it to his advantage. That's going to be huge for a Memphis team that is trying to, again, create this offense under Yazalo that has all this motion, that has all these moving parts around the court to open up space on the outside and across all these different zones in the half court. So you're going to have all this movement. Well, Saunders can do that. Even if he was asked at times to dominate the ball, with Debonsa there, you saw Saunders be asked to tone that down more and more. He's not going to have an issue with having to come off the ball if need be, because he worked on it the entire last season. And he's not one of those shooters who is just solely a catch and shoot guy. Like, no, if you need him to move off the ball, he can fill that responsibility very well. So the Grizzlies picking him up at 32. And the thing, he slid all the way down. Again, yes, you're going to look at the age and really cringe, maybe. But once again, the whole idea is for him to come right in and produce, and you know what you're getting out of Saunders. There is no secret here. There is no mystery surrounding his game. For the Grizzlies picking at that spot, that's exactly what they need. And it might be the antithesis of what the Timberwolves would get with the 33rd overall pick. Obviously, they acquired it in the trade that sent Julius Randle to the Nets. So with the number 33 overall pick, the Timberwolves would select Isaiah Evans from Duke, a 6'6", 175 shooting guard. And instantly, you scream 6-man for this Timberwolves team. It fits perfectly. He had to take an overall rise last season after a freshman year with Cooper Flagg and Knoepel obviously starting. He didn't see a lot of playing time. Last season, he played in all 38 games and started in all 38 games, garnering a lot more trust from that system under John Shire. He averaged 15 points per game and 43.3% shooting from the field, along with 36.1% shooting from deep, as well as 3.2 rebounds per game and 1.3 assists per game. So again, a very low assist to turnover ratio, but also when you come into the season, you are likely, if you're Minnesota, you are not going to have him be a primary ball handler for your team. The Timberwolves apparently have a lot going on, and best believe that when we get to that trade, they got a lot going on, believe me. So, taking all of that into account and still having guys like Bones Holland that you're unsure about returning to the team right now, having Evan step in as a potential offensive weapon, even in any limited capacity, can help this Timberwolves team. It was something that they were desperately looking for. That entire series against the Spurs, you were clamoring for them to get some kind of production off the bench. And it was just hard for them to string that together consistently. I mean, you start Dosunmu in a few of those games because you had no other choice with Dante DiVincenzo being out. But once that happened, it was a by-committee system with Bones Holland, with Terrence Shannon Jr., and with, Jalen Clark and others. And they just could not put it together offensively. They could not match up with their second unit well against the non-Wembanyama-led Spurs in those bench minutes. And that was one of the very reasons why they ended up losing that series. Now, I'm not saying that Evans is a player who is going to just completely blow all the lights out instantly for this Timberwolves team, but they are expecting him to, continue taking that extent. Hopefully, alongside Terrence Shannon Jr., make for a dynamic ball-handling duo of collegiate superstars in that backcourt on that second line, and hopefully give them more of a punch in the years to come when it comes to facing off against this tough Western Conference in pivotal playoff series. That is the ultimate goal for them. Like, Evans is still fairly young as well. He was going to be a rising junior if he did not enter this draft. So he's also been taking those steps forward that you'd like to see over the years. And that's going to pay off very well for the Timberwolves if this works out. With the number 34 overall pick going back to the 29th pick that the Kings picked up, that was in fact swapped for this 34th overall selection. So this would end up being the Cavs pick, and they would acquire the draft rights to Malik Thomas, the shooting guard out of Arkansas. He is also a guy who I'd instantly scream six-man about. Now, don't get the game fucked up. He was also a freshman last season. In fact, was asked in 21 starts to play alongside Darius Acuff Jr., and his numbers read like 15.6 points per game on 43.5% shooting, with 41.6% shooting from deep. So just flat out, he's already showcased that he can live and coexist with another ball-dominant guard at his same position, frankly, and not only just survive, but excel in the role off the ball. That works perfectly for this Cavs team, who is kind of searching still for youthful guard talent on their bench. They tried to get it with Keon Ellis, and he wasn't playable. They tried to get it with Jordan Tyson, and he, got minutes every now and then in the playoffs. But in that Knicks series, he was nowhere to be found. They couldn't play him all that much. So it just left this team continuing to search for answers. Granted, in this draft, this is one of the best ways they can do it. Because if they do decide to give James Harden this money, if they do decide to give Donovan Mitchell this money, on top of what is already the highest payroll in the NBA, they are already very limited on the assets that they can pick up in free agency. So this is one of the best methods you have to shore up that problem. And Thomas seems to be another player for them who they believe, hey, if they try to incorporate him into this system, we can start, playing around with the idea of getting him in a few of these games and a few of these rotations. It's just going to take some time to hash out, because even with the existing guards that they have on their roster, they still have yet to right now in the offseason. So it will not be a defined role for Thomas just yet, but again, that's no issue for him, as young as he is, also being a freshman last season, and coming in, understanding who was playing alongside him, and still balancing out, getting him his touches, and also knowing that, hey, at times I have to call my own number, although not enough to disrupt the chemistry that those two had together. So that was very important. With the number 35 pick, the Spurs initially had it, but again, going back to the first round, they swapped 26 with Denver, and so this 35th pick would belong to the Nuggets. The Nuggets would get the draft rights to Trayvon Brazile from Arkansas, which I have him listed as a power forward primarily. He is actually a really good fit for this Nuggets team, I do believe. Now, again, with the games that I saw from Arkansas last season, and again, they had a lot of talented players out here, at least in their own mind frame. I didn't trust his three-point shot all that much, and granted, 34.1% shooting from three last season is okay. It's a little bit improved from his first season all the way back in 2021. Yeah, so we're dealing with a redshirt senior here in Brazil. He is definitely one of the older rookies in this draft, but that's no sweat. Because when he was asked to make those big-time plays, especially as a defender last season, and just a truly athletic weapon, he was able to do so, garnering 13 points per and 7.3 assists, as well as 1.5 steals, 1.6 blocks, in all on 52.5% shooting from the field. So he's efficient, he can protect the rim, and as a lob threat, potentially next to Jokic in a few rotations. At his size, he's 6'9". Some people have him listed at 6'10". You are getting some more physicality and, again, athleticism from him that a lot of that Nuggets front court, especially Jokic, especially Jonas Valanciunas, they don't possess that right now. And, it's a great solution to have. He'll be able to come right in. He's going to be a rotational player. I totally believe that he will get a spot there. There is just one issue, and one tiny issue with this pickup for them. They gotta let Zeke Naji walk. They have to let Zeke Naji go. No longer can you continue relying on him to be a part of this team. Okay, he has to walk. It is time. That experiment has got to be over. Naji, when they drafted him, he came out of Arizona, and honestly, I'm not going to lie, from an athletic standpoint, they were probably thinking similar things about he in Brazil. It has not panned out in the NBA, and he has fallen out of the rotation to this point. Understanding that, you have to give Brazil that room to continue growing as a player and actually filling out that role without having to be penalized for making mistakes. Because they will happen generally. That's how it is for the rookies out there. Like, you don't want him having to worry about Zeke Naji breathing down his back. Not that that means a damn thing, but that is a part of the equation here. So the Nuggets do need to figure that out before it is all said and done. With the number 36 overall pick, the Clippers got the draft rights to it from Memphis, and with it, they selected Baba Miller, an overall forward from Cincinnati. I have him listed as a small/power forward, because Miller himself is one of the more intriguing prospects in this entire cycle. Like, there's just no way around it. He'd been all around college basketball, coming from Florida State to Florida Atlantic and then playing in Cincinnati last year. He is just seemingly a jack of many trades and a master of nothing just yet. He averaged 13 points per last season, along with 3.7 assists and 10.3 rebounds per game. So this man can facilitate fairly well as a forward. He can compete at a high level on the glass against most other defenders out there. And he can truly shoot at an efficient level on the interior at 52.9% and 60% from 2-point range. So the mid-range, the post, the paint, like, that's him. His 3-point shot is not there at just 19%. By far one of the worst marks in all of college basketball. And there is not really too much of an issue with that right now. They will want him to continue developing that and becoming more consistent with that shot. But not everybody can be the perfect prospect. After all, I forgot to mention, he's 6'11", 204 pounds. And you just heard all those other things about him. I don't think that they are losing much sleep over him not having a jump shot just yet. Because that's what you're getting. You're getting everything else of that kind from a 6'11" small and power forward from time to time. You can play him in both of those positions, and he can guard pretty much 1 through 5. Where have I heard that before? Oh yeah, it's one of the players that the Clippers have right now. So I'd be intrigued. Because if he can improve his motor, and he can improve that perimeter shot, even if the volume isn't high, just the danger of having that shot on this kid could open up so much for the Clippers like they would not believe. I'm telling you right now. I'm interested to see, though, where do they have him slotted in right now? That is the all-important question. You know, they have a lot of older wings that could really end up being moved. Like your John Collins, your Nicholas Batum's. Like, they're probably going to be out of the league soon. They're much closer on their way out than they are to have just gotten started in this entire equation. They have Baba Miller on a team that already has Jordan Miller as well. That could get confusing from time to time. They'll have to label that on these jerseys. Baba Miller is set to back up Derrick Jones Jr. as of this latest depth chart at the power forward position. Shockingly enough, they don't have him listed as a factor in anything of the small forward position. And, again, he doesn't need to be per se. It's something that could just be done just randomly, spur of the moment type of thing. Because that's the kind of versatility that he possesses on himself with that kind of length and range. Like, you can do a number of things with that. Especially on the defensive end of the ball right now. And that's probably what they'd want out of Miller immediately. Like, being able to produce that kind of offense is going to be a bonus. If he's providing them with that high energy defense, he'll continue playing. He'll continue getting well-deserved minutes. With a number 37 overall pick, the Thunder initially had it. Later, they would trade the draft rights to Miami, and with it, the Heat would get the rights to Ryan Conwell, another point guard out of Louisville who played right alongside Michael Brown Jr. this past season. He'd been all over again, a 4-year player, spending time in just a single university per season. South Florida in 22, Indiana State in 23, Xavier in 24, and Louisville in 25. I find it crazy to see that he has grown pretty much each and every single year, despite having that constant movement all over the place. You would like to see him be a little bit more efficient than just 41% from the field, but he also had his highest scoring output with 18.8 last season. He was a pretty solid rebounder in his role and also got a fair amount of assists with the ball not being in his hands as much. Having Brown Jr., another good playmaker, on your roster. So, again, Conwell might not have the same kind of upside as Brown Jr., but in a system where you had multiple guards who could go off for a high level of scoring at any point. And for Conwell himself, they mentioned on the broadcast that his scoring always seemed to increase against ranked competition. So another promising sign here, if you're going to get that from a player, especially this late in the draft. The Heat, knowing that they were in desperate need of trying to fill out that bench, you're getting a player in Conwell who might not be expected to be one of the better players in the draft, but through that Heat development system that typically gets the most out of their players, Conwell could very much thrive in that system, without question. And I think that, honestly, the way it's set up right now, he'd have to work for it a lot, but I'd imagine that he could come right in and serve as potentially a backup. They have him listed as a third-string shooting guard, although he can also, from time to time, play the combo position if you need him to. That was just the kind of offense Louisville had. So, that is going to be very interesting to follow from Miami's perspective as they continue in maybe cost-effective ways trying to fill out this bench. Because they depleted it. You got the big fish in this entire equation back, so you're not complaining, but you got to get a bench. And I guess it starts in ways with this. With a number 38 pick, the Bulls initially had it, but it was announced after they announced the selection that the pick was traded to Indiana. And how fitting is it that the Pacers get the draft rights to Braden Smith, the man literally hailing from Purdue, the man in Braden Smith who literally was born in Indiana, the man who was a 4-year senior for this fucking team and had done nothing but serve as the literal driving force, the literal number one for this team for multiple years in a row. You want to talk about that for them. And you're telling me that in order to get this Braden Smith, this stud of a guard from Purdue, all they had to do was send away Cam Jones in cash considerations. That was the detail of the trade. It's unfortunate for Cam Jones. At the same time, they did not find much of a role for him last season. And, I was saying, hey, that could have been him in that backup role alongside TJ McConnell. It just did not work out that way. It was a terrible season for the Pacers in general, and so you have to find ways to move on from that entirely. They aren't missing a beat with getting the likes of Braden Smith here. I mean, his reputation speaks for itself. The all-time leader in NCAA history in assists, and a multi-time leader in assists per game. A multiple-time All-Star, or All-American rather, across several publications. And through all of that being said, he still managed to shoot, for his career, 43.6% from the field and 38.5% from deep, despite being an even 6 foot. Some people listed him at 5'11". Did that end up mattering? No. When you see the man and his ability to maneuver around the court, when you look at the basketball IQ that he generally has, to find these players on Purdue, like your Trey Kaufman-Renz, like your Fletcher Lawyers, whom he played alongside as well, making sure that damn near every fucking time they are set up in the perfect position to get a shot off. The shot to their liking. Without question. Every time. It was like fucking clockwork. And he, by nature, is a pass-first guy. Yet you still see the man from time to time call his own number. Reference the very game in the Big Ten tournament where Purdue stuck it to the Wolverine squad, and where he went head up against Adai Morris several times, unfazed, not worried at all, not giving a fuck. And he walked them down several times in that game. So you're getting someone who genuinely might be fearless and who can be another facilitator on a Pacers team that loves to swing the ball around. This is excellent for them. McConnell, again, will likely still be there, but I wouldn't imagine that he'd be in the NBA for too much time. And if that is the case, if that's so, even if Braden Smith is one of the older guards to come out of this cycle, he is generally one of the older players to come out in this cycle, you're going to get a lot out of him. He will be 23 years old on July 25th. Still fairly young. And in that system, with your Tyrese Halliburtons, your Andrew Nembhards, your TJ McConnells, there is going to be so much to go around for this kid like you would not believe, bro. The Pacers are truly trying to make sure that, hey, when it comes to all of our team, our first or second or third units even, we got guys that can lead the way at every step, who can serve as floor generals on all courts to truly get this team on the right track once again. With a number 39 pick, the Rockets initially had it, and it was traded then to the Knicks, who would then select Jack Kyle from Germany, a point guard who played in the Bundesliga. He and his squad actually won the tournament for the league just a couple days before, and now I can say that he is involved in the draft cycle. Admittedly, I was not too familiar with him, though. But once again, for the Knicks here, with some of the impending free agents that they may have, getting a pick like this and investing in that might not be the worst thing in the world. The number 40 overall pick, the Celtics selected Dylan Mitchell, a small forward out of St. John's, who is mainly a defensive specialist. Every other part of his game is in question right now. Now, as far as we know for the Celtics, they're intact. They have all their pieces. They still have Jason Tatum. They still have Jaylen Brown for now, so it's not that much of a problem. And they have a lot of wings as well filling several different roles. Where Mitchell might be solely reliant on his defense to succeed. And especially, similar to a guy like Jordan Walsh, just getting inside the paint mainly for his scoring. You will have your Baylor Shimons as well, who can space the floor at a high level, and the same goes for Ron Harper Jr., I suppose. So it's not necessarily the biggest thing in the world, but in that Celtics culture, with that coaching, you're going to live on a three. You're going to die on a three. So they're going to have to get him in the lab to work on that, because 6.7% shooting from three, even on the severely low amount of attempts per game that he had by proxy, no, that will not cut it. So that's got to be worked on. But for now, it's fine. With the number 41 overall pick, the Heat initially had it, and again, it got swapped. So they had the draft rights to Ryan Conwell. Meanwhile, the Thunder would get the draft rights to Otega Oweh from Kentucky. Meaning that now both of the Oweh brothers are in their respective pro levels of their sports. So that's a great, situation being for Oweh. He is another player who is mainly a slasher. Let's call it what it is. He spent split time at Oklahoma and Kentucky, averaging in this last season 18.6 points per game and 46.5% shooting from the field, along with 33.3% shooting from deep and 4.8 rebounds. He has some pretty good games overall, including the first round of 64 match against Santa Clara that saw him clutch up, hit a game-tying buzzer beater to send that to overtime and stave off elimination for Kentucky and then win them the game. That, in ways for many people, was his breakout performance of the year, one that put him on the national spotlight. And with that, he's been able to parlay it now into getting selected to a Thunder team that is looking desperately for more scoring output and more primary ball handling output. Rephrase that, off the bench. Because that was the entire problem surrounding the Thunder. Yes, SGA had his noticed struggles with efficiency in the playoffs, but whenever he was not on the court, and with them losing Jalen Williams and AJ Mitchell to injury, all their ball handlers that they would trust were out of those games. Hurt them mightily by the end and cost them ground that they could not make up. Now, Oweh, again, the outside shot is not there. I don't think it ever will be there, considering that he's a 4-year player. He is still got time to improve in ways, but mostly he's going to be what he is. That ability to get downhill, though, at 6'5", and actually force the issue would be a nice change for the Thunder, though. And, as the broadcast team have been talking about, there were still, some players in the mix for this Thunder team that could potentially be moved in the weeks to come. So maybe there's an opportunity that in all that, Oweh's role actually, changes around just a little bit as the team sort of fluctuates in between what they want to do moving forward. But for now, it's in limbo a little bit. That's okay. They'll have all the space they need to figure it out. Trust me, they will remain championship contenders. All this is, again, just adding more pieces to the puzzle. Even more pieces to the puzzle than they could have possibly asked for. At the number 42 overall pick, the Spurs would have it, and initially got it from the Trailblazers. With it, they selected Jacoby Gillespie, a guard from Tennessee, who was on the smaller side, but once again provides them with a high motor off the bench, and also provides them with solid defense, despite being 5'11". Now, the Spurs didn't need to go overboard with a selection of a guard because you have existing guards on your team in Harper and Fox and in Castle, who, again, Harper and Castle especially, they are young, they are flourishing talents that you hit on high in the lottery. You wouldn't need to juxtapose that by getting another crazy point guard prospect in this draft. It wouldn't need to happen. But when it comes to, again, finding a way to make up for some of those deficiencies off the bench, this is another margin pick here that the Spurs are very intent on having. And shit, with them, it wouldn't even be the first pick. Like, it would only be the first pick that they'd have in the second round. So you'd hear from them again very soon. With a number 42 overall pick, the Nets, or a number 43 overall pick rather, the Nets had it picked up from the Heat, and with it, they got the draft rights to Tyler Bilodeau, a power forward from UCLA, who stands at 6'7", and who can shoot the lights out. Now, I had watched only a few UCLA games from time to time, and his defense does need some work. Like, they trusted him to be their big man. It was an underwhelming experiment, and it got Cronin obviously in trouble on a few occasions, as that UCLA team was just going through it entirely that season. It's not all Bilodeau's fault, though. In a system where there is virtually no pressure to be elite right now, if Bilodeau does get some early playing time, he can just go out there as free as a bird, come in, put up a few three-pointers, move on from there. He's also severely limited when it comes to his interior game. And you don't want a player like that who can actually rebound fairly well. You don't want a player like that consistently living at the three-point line if he doesn't have to. So, Jordi Fernandez is going to have his work cut out, as he will with a lot of these other picks. You know, hopefully that process will be worth it. With a number 44 overall pick, the Spurs had another one that they got from the Heat, and with it, they used that to select another defensive-minded player in Malik Brown, also from Duke. Like, just straight up defensive anchor energy from Malik Brown. You are getting nothing more, nothing less from the 4-year senior, who stands at 6'8", so he's a bit undersized in height, but he makes up for it with this. And to think that he was giving you this as a player who started in just 35 games throughout his career, who started in just 10 out of the 38 for Duke last season, was one of their key defensive pieces, averaging 1.8 steals and 0.6 blocks off the bench. He actually led the nation in Syracuse in steals in 2023 with 2.2. Or led the ACC during that season. Like, the jump shooting, you're not getting that out of him. He shot just 26.2% from his entire career. But if you can get him in the interior, if you can throw up lobs to him, if you can get him in close for those easy shots, he's as bankable as it gets. Shooting 67.5% from the field for his entire collegiate career. Can't argue with that. So here you have the Spurs using 3 of their picks and getting Gillespie in the middle on a lot of these players who are a bit undersized to be centers in ways, but who are going to go full out on the defensive end. I'm sensing with that there's got to at least be some kind of competition forming and brewing for all of them. And throughout the season, they probably get their own spot minutes to fill those responsibilities. It would probably be a Bachmany system, but somebody's going to end up taking that outright. Because to have 3 players of this mode, it's can be a little bloated. But there's no shortage of that if it comes to you trying to preserve those non-Wembanyama minutes and at least keep them intact to just make these games close when he's down on the floor. That's always going to be valuable for this Spurs team. As long as Wembanyama is performing like that, and as long as this team has got a chance to go all the way. At the number 45 overall pick, the Kings had the draft rights to it after picking it up from the Hornets, and they got Emmanuel Sharp, the guard/forward from Houston. Now, he is a bit on the smaller side, but that man, even though at times he was built like a power forward from what I was seeing, but legitimately, he is, even at 6'3", one of the better on-ball defenders in the entire draft, and he can shoot the fucking lights out. Who is one of the core players for Houston during all his time there. And in this last season, averaged 15.5 points, 3 rebounds, and 1.7 assists per game on 41.3% shooting from the field and 37.2% shooting from deep. He also led the Big 12 in free throw percentage at 89.1%. So, I mean, hey, we're taking some shots, and we're making a whole hell of a lot of them in Sacramento. Perfect to have him come off the bench more than likely. And that could be an adjustment for sure, even though he started most of his career, and especially the last 3 seasons of his collegiate career. That might be a bit of a rough adjustment to make, but I wouldn't expect that to be too much of a problem for him. With the number 46 pick, the Magic had it, and they would use it on Felix Apara, a center hailing from Tennessee. The Knicks also had the 47th pick, and it was picked up from the 76ers. They selected Tyler Nickel from Vanderbilt, a small forward, I believe. Although, again, I was not, too keen on his game. With the number 48 pick, the Mavericks picked up Tobi Lawal, a 6'7" small forward from Virginia Tech, with a pick that they got from Phoenix. So again, all these teams just moving on from the rights to all these picks. And they just end up in a completely different location now. They mentioned that Lawal finished with the highest standing vertical and the highest max vertical in the entire draft cycle. And, they were rolling a bit of his highlights, man. He's just getting up and over people. And it has it down to a science. That's the scary thing right there. Yes, you will have your athletes who just jump to jump. But there is genuine intent when Lawal puts those 2 feet down, drives them into the dirt, and rises up. There is genuine intent for him to do something at all points. And having a mastery of that right now is pretty damn dangerous. The Mavericks, again, it seems like they have all the offense that they would need right now. Being able to use that athleticism to your advantage defensively, for Dallas is everything right now, as they try to restore at least some form of an identity, leaning towards that. Now having Dusty May in the system, and now having Masai Ujiri as a general manager, continuing to make moves that, again, might not jump off the page at teams, at fans of the team right now, but could turn into incredibly important chapters on the path to a championship run for this Mavericks team. With the number 49 overall pick, the Nuggets had it, and they got the draft rights from the Hawks, so they would acquire Bryce Hopkins, a small forward from St. John's. Now, Hopkins himself seems to have a bit more of an all-around game compared to that of his running mate in Dillon Mitchell at St. John's. Over the entire year last season, along with the likes of Zubi Ejiofor, the 4-year and I think even redshirt senior, after spending most of his career at Providence, he saw his numbers dip just a little bit. And granted, he was coming off an injury in 2024-25. But he still parlayed it into a year of 13.6 points per game scoring, 6.2 rebounds per game, and 1.9 assists per game on 46.9% shooting, which was by far a career high for him, and also 36.3% shooting from deep. Now, it seems like that has gone all over the place for him throughout his career, and so finding a consistency there is going to be important. You'd love to see that free throw percentage go up for him, and also, just maybe continuing to be a better playmaker with the ball in his hands. But, the defensive impact that he can already make on the roster is the value that you're going to get from Dillon Mitchell, Bryce Hopkins, rather. So that's where the source of his playing time will mainly be made up. At the number 50 overall pick, the Raptors had the draft rights. And in fact, this would be the only pick of the second round that saw the Raptors not trade out of the position, not be swindled into a move out of the position. They were the only team to retain their original draft slot. And with it, they would select Jaden Bradley, point guard from Arizona. Now, Bradley, alongside Koa Pete, as well as the aforementioned Braden Burries, both of whom were taken earlier, he was a great beneficiary of that team's success at Arizona. And, it's a testament to the rise that, I think it was Tommy Lloyd, had been on since taking up that Arizona job. Genuinely. One of the most important players for them over the past couple seasons, and it culminated in this year. Playing in all 39 games, providing them with durability and availability over the course of his time, and genuinely being a bulldog as a point guard. Getting downhill, being a great perimeter defender, all those kinds of things that a team would be looking for, and that the Raptors kind of already had in Jamal Shead. Now you just add that with a little more height on Jaden Bradley, who stands at 6'3". He averaged 13.3 points per game and 4.4 assists per game on 46.3% shooting from the field and 39.4% shooting from deep. Again, this Raptors team is still trying to figure out how they can improve their spacing overall, because they were flat out one of the worst teams in the regular season when it came to three-point percentage. And it's still, although they had brief success with it in the playoffs, it ended up being why they fell short. If they can improve on that, even in, the most infinitesimal of ways, it can benefit them and at least make them a better team on paper as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. With the number 51 pick, the Wizards initially had it, and the pick was then traded to the Magic. So the Magic will get the draft rights to Isaiah Nelson, a power forward from South Florida. And he seems to be another defensive-minded player, which again doesn't necessarily hurt the Wizards right now. You have all this offensive potential with the aforementioned AJ DePonza, Anthony Davis, Trae Young, Tyshawn George, Bob Carrington, Trey Johnson III off the bench, so on and so on. Now it's just about balancing it out in a rigid way. With the number 52 overall pick, the Clippers had it and then traded the draft rights to Atlanta. And with it, we would finally see a name called off the board that had a chance to be drafted as a first-round talent, as some people mocked. The man initially, when the night had gone underway, he was projected as one of the top 5 best available players. And for whatever reason, team after team during this time, maybe because they genuinely didn't need a center, maybe because they genuinely didn't need a power forward kind of build, they passed over him. And it took until 52 for the Hawks to get the draft rights to Henri Veesaar from North Carolina, the center. And I knew right then and right there, damn, fuck. Because the Warriors just had a pick a couple selections later, and he was still on the board. I'm saying, okay, if he's going to keep falling down, fuck it, let him fall to the Warriors. Let him fall to the Warriors. Oh, shit. The fucking Hawks got him. This man is quite literally molded his game before our very eyes. I had access to all the Arizona games. All the Arizona games. For whatever reason. When I was watching college basketball during that 2024 season. I'm telling you, every single fucking night. With Caleb Love and the whole crew, these Arizona games would come on, and I would see Henri Veesaar there. This man was truly a fucking glass-cleaning, defensive-minded beast for this team. His interior finishing was okay. It might have not have been much to write home about. You're just giving him basic touches down low and asking him to just convert them at a high level, which he did. He did not have a three-point shot. I promise you. I was watching those games. He could not shoot. But the defense was consistently on point. Whatever the case might have been, Arizona got fairly far. In 24, they fell short, and Veesaar transferred to North Carolina for play this last season. He took a massive jump like no one would believe. He far increased his scoring output at 17 points per game and 8.7 rebounds per game on 61% shooting from the field. All of a sudden, this man who was just asked to, lay low, sit in the middle of the court and do nothing else, was now actively involved in North Carolina's success. Being asked to take legitimate possessions in a row in the post and make things happen from that area of the floor, which he did. The defense was still intact, but even better than all of that was the fact that on 3 attempts, by far a career high for him per game, he shot 42.6% from three-point range. The man who was literally left wide open and who was dared to shoot on several occasions at Arizona, all of a sudden was lethal from range. They could not fuck with him out there. In a second that happened, that changed everything for Veesaar. For the Hawks to get their hands on that, the now second player ever in NBA history to reign from Estonia in Spain, and a 7-foot, 200-pound big man. This is what the Hawks are getting for cheap. Why even keep Jock Landale anymore? Because this is what they were expecting out of him. And this is exactly what they were expecting from Jock Landale. Exactly what they were expecting. Now, for what it's worth, Veesaar is listed as a 5th string center. That will change. that will change. He will most certainly find himself a role on this Hawks team. And I cannot wait for that to happen. Because it absolutely will. Craziness, man. With the 53rd overall pick, the Rockets initially had it. Then that pick got traded to the the pick got traded to the Knicks. Then the pick got traded again to the damn Pistons. And with that, they would select Ungona Oezo, a center from Virginia, who is also another big man hailing from the ACC. Now, he is specifically a defensive mind, to the point where he actually logged 9 blocks in a single game against Duke. So yeah, he's that fucking legit on the defensive end. And the Pistons get that shit for cheap. Like, if the Knicks would have gotten their hands on him, I would have lost my fucking mind. Because at that, they would have just let Mitchell Robinson walk free and not lose any sleep over it. Oh my gosh. But the Pistons got him. For what it's worth, with what they would proceed to do, it would become very clear that, you don't mind picking this up now. Not at all. With the Warriors, they had the number 54 overall pick, and it was actually sent to them from the Lakers. So with it, they get the draft rights to Lajay Jones, a guard forward out of Florida State who stands at 6'7". Now I gotta have a word with Mike Dunleavy Jr., bro. I gotta have a word with this nigga, man. I gotta have a word, man. I just want to talk. I just want to talk, bro. That's like literally. I'm screaming. Who the fuck is this? Who is this? For defensive purposes, him being a 6'7" wing is actually good. That's good. That's fair. I'll acknowledge that. However, if the idea is to be a 3-and-D type of player, I don't have much faith in him taking a career high 5.1 or 3-pointers per game last season and making just 32.5% of them. That does not inspire much faith in the masses. If this is what you're going to task him with doing, and that's the sample size. Unbelievable. Just like the Clippers had the number 55 overall pick, and they got it from the Knicks in a trade. Wouldn't you believe it? Literally just moving all over the place. They would select Nick Martinelli, a small forward from Northwestern, although he kind of plays like a power forward from time to time. They brought up his positional size and things of that nature. Just a very weird selection here, all things considered. But again, they have a lot of wings who are on their way out of the door. And so being able to invest in these guys right now is not that's not a bad idea for them. See what you have in these players and then, make a decision on whether or not you want to retain them for the long haul. While allowing these older players, for literally one of the oldest teams in the NBA last season, to finally move on with their careers. For the number 56 overall pick, the Bulls initially had it, and the draft rights were traded initially to the Lakers, who then traded the draft rights to Dallas. With it, they would select Vselolod Izhenko, a shooting guard from Russia. Let me tell you right now, he was not on any of the mock drafts. I was not aware that this was a prospect. And so hearing this shit caught me off guard like you would not believe. I legitimately was not expecting to hear that name. Now, he could turn around and be a really good prospect for this Mavericks roster. I was not aware of his game. I was not. For the number 57 overall pick, it's a similar story here. Because the Hawks initially had it, and then the draft rights were traded to the Clippers. With it, they would draft and stash a player, selecting Naz Reid, a power forward from France. Again, another prospect who I didn't know anything about. Now, he was actually mocked in one of the drafts, but when it came time for the selection, they showed no profile, no highlights, no numbers. So we are genuinely getting a mystery guy right now. We do not know a lick about this Naz Reid. And they're stashing him. So he, as per all we know right now, he probably is not a finished product. He's probably going to continue playing overseas. And then once they decide that, hey, he might be ready to go, you know, you have the contact, you'll come over, and we'll do the thing from there. With the number 58 overall pick, the Pelicans had the draft rights initially from the Pistons, and with it, they would select Jaron Pierre Jr., a point guard from Southern Methodist. With the number 59 pick after that, the Timberwolves had it, and they actually had the draft rights from the Spurs. This probably goes back to them sending Rob Dillingham over there in the 2024 draft. At least I would think. I could be wrong about that, though. With that, they would select Trey Kaufman-Renn, the power forward center from Purdue. Now, again, don't go around fucking comparing him to Kyle Anderson and shit. Trey Kaufman-Renn is truly a beast on that post. On that low block, oh, he's money. He's money. Again, that game, that two-man game, specifically with him and Braden Smith, was one of the highlights to truly witness in college basketball over the past few seasons. Just a thing of beauty. He is highly accurate down low. He shot 59.7% from two-point range in 2024 and then 59.2% in 2025, even with less scoring, just 14.2 this year. His rebounding also saw a massive uptick to 8.3 in 2025. And he shot 57.8% from the field overall. So, you understand that what you're getting from Kaufman-Renn at this point, he's not going to overwhelm you with three-level scoring. But he will certainly use and abuse those methods, put them to good use, night in, night out. And they'll likely have Kaufman-Renn play at 4. Although, again, this is a struggle. He's a bit of a tweener at 6'9". Too small to be a center, but not as adept to be a power forward all the time. So that's why he was playing big man for a good portion of the year, although at times the Boilermakers also had Clough play as the true center alongside him to allow Kaufman-Renn to get the most out of his game. And if things stay a certain way in Minnesota, they may look to do the same thing. Kaufman-Renn, of course, is likely, again, with what had happened for the Timberwolves very recently, they got some stuff to figure out. They have got some stuff to figure out. But if they do decide to play Kaufman-Renn this year, he'll come in right away, and he will be able to make an instant impact on this team. And then with the 60th overall pick, the Wizards initially had the draft rights to it, traded it over to the Bucks, once again, fittingly to end it off. And with it, they would have the draft rights to Malik Lewis, a small forward and power forward from Trinidad and Tobago, who is still overseas at this moment. And with that, that would be the entirety of the NBA draft. Just a lot of overall intrigue from the obvious talent in the first round, and even just all these different moving pieces in the second round, with some pretty solid late round steals, honestly, for a few select teams here. Only time will tell to see if they all reach that point, but man, it was definitely a blast to go through that. And the fireworks weren't even close to beginning yet. Not even close. Because we now have to move into the trade. You see, it was brought to our attention literally just like 40 or so minutes after the initial second round had ended, where Shams Charania brought it to our attention that the Hornets were actively looking and fielding aggressive offers for LaMelo Ball. And, of course, the idea of LaMelo Ball being involved in trade talks wasn't as much of a surprise. This had been going on for at least a couple years now, knowing that the Hornets were just not great enough to compete, understanding that LaMelo Ball was getting this reputation as an empty stats man for this team for so long. And, the thought started to creep in that, hey, we invested so much in this guy when we drafted him in 2020, but we have gone virtually nowhere. And so, what exactly does the value for LaMelo Ball look like? At the time, it wasn't as high as you would expect. It wasn't as high. Between the injuries, between the lack of team success, between the lack of efficiency that he possessed on the court, teams did not want to take that risk on him. And they also found as well that, not even necessarily like crazy maturity issues factored into it, but they just didn't want that kind of attitude in their locker room, quite frankly. So again, there have been rumors constantly surrounding LaMelo Ball. There just wasn't a lot of traction behind it because, frankly, teams weren't as invested. But with what the Hornets put together last season, teams took notice at the fact that, hey, LaMelo Ball burst onto the scene as a driving force for this unit. And in ways, they would still think, the Hornets, that without him, they'd be just fine. Let's see if we can swindle them for LaMelo Ball a little bit. That's where the source of all these aggressive offers come from. On the flip side, the way the Timberwolves had been moving, the way they had been drafting up to that point, multiple people on the broadcast team alluded to the idea that something big could potentially happen for this Timberwolves team, with them moving on from Julius Randle, re-signing Ayo Dosunmu, and now seemingly having all this cap to go after a star talent. Nobody knew it was going to happen this fast. Nobody. I'm sleeping. I'm thinking everything is good. I wake up. I get a call. I get a call about this shit. And I'm told that per Shams Charania, The Hornets, earlier in the morning, traded LaMelo Ball. I'm like, what? Like, the way that this stuff can move sometimes. You mean to tell me just over, like, a half day ago, as the draft cycle was still going on, that the Hornets had been fielding offers? Then by the time people are waking up in the morning, by the time some people might already be at work in the morning, just like that, LaMelo's gone out the door from this Charlotte team. And ironically enough, it ended up being the Timberwolves involved on the other end of the deal. So for the full details, the Hornets traded LaMelo Ball and Josh Green to the Timberwolves in exchange for Naz Reid, a 2033 unprotected first-round pick, 3 first-round pick swaps between the 2028 and 2030 seasons, and 3 second-round picks in the 2029, 2032, and 2033 seasons. Just blew me by surprise, caught me by surprise, bro. Like, wow. Wow. There are so many different things to think about this. And I guess it's fair to, focus on the Timberwolves first. Of course, in the same way, we'll do it fair justice. We'll cover both teams in this equation. Start with the Timberwolves here. What? The whole plan, this entire time, with all those moves, was to naturally look for a co-star that could effectively pair alongside Anthony Edwards. And for them, by the end of this deal, it ended up, surprisingly, being another guard with all-star caliber talent. And again, LaMelo Ball is to blame for that just a little bit. But it's insane. I mean, you instantly look at that and you're going, how in the world can we ship off a player in Naz Reid who we just paid? We just paid him a $100 million deal. And we can offload that for a Ball contract that is far more expensive right now. And yet still come away with a grand player. A grand player. Now, it does leave them without having Naz Reid at this moment. I mean, instantly, you would say that if they had stagnated, they would be devoid of talent here. Yet, that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, they've been working on it the whole way. I don't expect Ayo Dosunmu to remain a small forward. They have him starting as a small forward and Jaden McDaniels as a power forward here. If that does remain, though, you've seen enough from Jaden McDaniels throughout the playoffs and throughout his rise in the regular season to suggest that he can fill that responsibility that Naz Reid left. And Naz Reid as well was attacked several times over for his weak defense, despite him being a valuable offensive player in six-man. And with having Jaden McDaniels right there, knowing how great of a perimeter defender he is, and at times how he is labeled as the best defender the Timberwolves have to offer, you are not discontent with that at all. Like, you will certainly be fine with having him play the 4 if he needs to play the 4. Not to mention some of the other guys that you drafted to this point throughout this cycle. Your Trey Kaufman-Renz, who we were just talking about, who could now, if you desperately need it, maybe you have him step in as a tertiary option off the bench at the 4. You have Isaiah Evans, you have Terrence Shannon Jr. paired up as the backcourt still to this point. They found a way to make it work, seemingly. It could have been a disaster for them to just lose Naz Reid like this. And yet they already had the parts they needed in place to weather this immediate storm. So again, they just paid Naz Reid. They love Naz Reid, but they're not losing as much sleep as you would expect by losing him. It seems as though right now they're prepared for life without him. And they have the tools and the resources in place to subside just fine, making up for that lost scoring in several other ways amongst several players here, especially with now having Evans on this roster through the draft. Like, that opens everything up. And, rather than, keeping players off the glass, off the bench, you can now get that a little bit. Regain that kind of presence with having other players take on that outside shooting in ways that Naz Reid could not. Like, every single time you are asking Naz Reid to shoot threes, it's fine to do it. But you're drawing him away from the basket, and at times, he was their small ball center. He had to be because of the lack of pace that Rudy Gobert had. He literally slowed the offense down. And so you have that going on, but you are going to be weaker on the offensive glass every time. Because that's one pseudo big man drawn away entirely from that restricted area. Well, now if that had to happen, we have reliable big men coming off the bench now who can at least show you some effort on the glass. And so that makes things a little bit easier in this deal for Minnesota. Instantly, you look at LaMelo Ball's track record and you think that, hey, again, the empty stats, the inefficient volume shot chucking, him needing to rely on that mainly for the majority of his career. Now we're asking him to play alongside another ball dominant guard in Anthony Edwards. That's a lot to ask. It is a lot to ask. And that's why I say this. Both of them are going to have to learn how to play off the ball with each other. Both of them. There is no excuse. Both of them have to. It's going to be tough. They're both going to need their touches. We know how great of a scorer Anthony Edwards can be and was last season. Quite frankly, he should have been an all-NBA first teamer, second teamer at the very worst. Like, literally, on a career year trajectory, and, it did not go according to plan with injuries at the end and the early finish in the playoffs. So having another all-star level player with high upside like LaMelo Ball still, it puts them in a great position to at least extend this championship window that they believe they have. Like, that's what can get lost in the equation here. Before, expanding on my point about these two specifically a little bit further. The entire situation surrounding the Timberwolves over the past few months, even past the trade deadline, is that they were in desperate need of a co-star no matter what. They were looking all over the place. And a lot of it led to them looking for older players here. especially when it came to Giannis Antetokounmpo. They were close. In fact, there was a report saying that, hey, if the Timberwolves would have gotten Giannis, he would have signed with them long term. So when you look at that conversation, when you look at them missing out on him, they were very close to acquiring his services. It fell through. And like a lot of the other superstars that they might have been pursuing, they did not end up with those players on their team. I'd argue, though, that if they would have gone after these older superstars, yes, it would have extended the championship window, but, it'd have to be over a, very short stretch of time. 2 years, 3 years, because these superstar players, for as good as they may be, they've only got a few good years left in them. And very likely, in at least the next 3 to 4 years, some of them may end up retiring. While Anthony Edwards is in the prime of his career, and if you don't have a championship on deck, he'd still be searching for one. And may potentially want to look elsewhere. To, suit up. And that could be an issue for a Timberwolves team who also took him in the 2020 draft. Now, the paths for these two. LaMelo Ball being, I think it was the second overall pick or third overall pick, rather, sorry. And Anthony Edwards being the first overall pick at that time. Right, second overall pick was fucking James Wiseman's bust ass. But yeah, those two to be drafted 1 and 3 at that time, to now cross paths playing on the same team pretty much 6 years later around. That's just an exceptional story. And they got here in different ways. Again, the Hornets had been pretty much mediocre during his entire time. It galvanized into a spectacular year last year. But again, as I was alluding to, is that really solely on LaMelo Ball with the way that they drafted? The saying goes that they literally, in order to find the success they had this season, they had to decrease his minutes back to 28 points per game to ensure, or 28 minutes per game rather, to ensure that he could stay on the court for a reasonable amount of time, that he wasn't going to get injured during the year. We're monitoring you. We have to string you along just to get this kind of production out of you. And it benefited the team. With players like Konchanoipel, with Miles Bridges having an uptick in production overall in the year, with Brandon Miller continuing to find his steady pace in the NBA. And with, again, as I'd mentioned about the Hornets in videos past, all these young centers, by committee, leaving their own respective imprints on the game. The time for the Hornets is now. And, they were met with either investing in LaMelo Ball for an even longer term, knowing that these guys down the road would look to get paid, and knowing just how many other assets they have in the vault right now through the draft, just completely losing their value. Or they can take control right now and potentially get something valuable in return to move on from Ball. And they chose the latter. Anthony Edwards, meanwhile, again, the Wolves themselves had been mired in that purgatory for years before he got there. And, as he continued to rise as a player, this team in general started to get deeper and deeper into the playoffs, culminating in their back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. But this team has been stagnant. This was supposed to be the year that they got all the way to the NBA Finals. And they did not come remotely close to doing so. They got rid of one of the problems, and they will still end up getting rid of Rudy Gobert. Considering the contract that LaMelo Ball has, the money still might not make too much sense right now. So again, they will most certainly move on from him. You needed a legitimate co-star to pair up alongside Anthony Edwards, and it feels as though you may have it. Although on the surface, it can look a number of different ways. Both of them need the ball in their hands to succeed. That is just the truth of the matter. The usage rate for both of these players is generally high. For LaMelo Ball, for example, it reached 35.9 in 2024. It was at 32 last season. And then you pair that up with Anthony Edwards in the same way last year. His ended up being, per reference, 31.5. Now, both of these guys, again, compared with everyone else, they're going to get a lot of the touches. There's no escaping that. But playing off of one another is going to be heavily important. And I think Anthony Edwards specifically has taken several strides to become a more imposing three-point shooter. I mean, after all, Anthony Edwards himself, like LaMelo Ball was last year, was also one of the leaders in total three-pointers, I should say, in 2024. So he'd already been, making those strides in real time. And it is going to have to culminate in these two working with each other to open up those kinds of shots for each other. Also, from that standpoint, with both of them being able to handle the ball, offensively, it is a threat that any defense has to work overtime to stop. You can't double team both of them at the same time. In one way or the other, no matter who's handling the ball at one point in time. You have Anthony Edwards dealing with double teams, and granted, he still needs to improve his playmaking. You can just have LaMelo Ball bring the ball up the court, leaving Anthony Edwards to settle in elsewhere, and especially if he's moving off the ball, getting to his spot still, oh yeah, that changes up the entire complexion of that team. And as I was saying, yeah, double teams will be inevitable, especially as we near the playoffs. LaMelo Ball is a player who historically has not even gotten that far in the first place, by virtue of the lack of team success. Yet at the same time, in a general situation, if there is one player who you'd want to take the burden off of you in those double team scenarios, if there is any one player who could really succeed in them in theory, it would be a guy with the kind of size, the court vision, and the passing ability that LaMelo Ball possesses. Now, I'm not saying he's always going to make smart decisions. Do with that information what you will. But LaMelo Ball is the caliber of passer who can truly improvise, who can make something, some sort of spectacular play out of absolutely nothing. And there aren't many other playmakers whom you would trust with that task over LaMelo Ball in this current league. That is just the truth of the matter. So from that standpoint, it is a perfect fit. You combine LaMelo Ball's passing with Anthony Edwards' scoring ability, and you understand as well that they both have the ability to shoot the three ball, that they both have the ability to, on any one night, go off. That takes it back to all the dangerous backcourt duos of years and even decades past. kind of a throwback pairing. You typically want your star pair in this day and age to be a guard and a big, or a guard and a forward. Now you have two guards here, flanked by a lot of defensive talent, and a player in McDaniels as well, a player in Dosunmu as well, who also have their fair share of three-point shooting ability. And for McDaniels, an ability to, even being a bit of a small, I'm not going to say frail. He's on the skinny side as a player, but he can still get to his spot in the mid-range and shoot at an efficient level there. So it diversifies this offense for the Timberwolves a little bit after having to deal with, solely Anthony Edwards isolation or solely Julius Randle isolation. Oh, no. Those words hurt to say for the past few seasons. Yeah, now we can look to something else. We can spread this offense out a little bit while still retaining our ability to get downhill in the paint to generate our offense. It's not like that's completely lost with Julius Randle or Naz Reid being gone, because when they were on the court, both of them struggled to do it. We trust the guys that are there to get the job done. And it's crazy to see. It'll fit the same timeline. Both of these guys are 24 going on 25. Incredibly young talents. With the world in front of them, quite frankly. If they so choose to seize these moments in the offseason, in team practices, and truly work towards that goal together. They all have to be bought in. Say what you want about LaMelo Ball. For the first time in his NBA career, he will be a part of a team that legitimately has championship aspirations. For the very first time, as he nears his age 25 season. In fact, he's got 17 days on Anthony Edwards. 17 days. So, again, they are young as shit. You're pairing up these guys together, potentially, for years to come. Maybe even a decade. That could be wishful thinking, because for all we know, they spend this time together. They have a blast, especially as two of the players in the NBA who don't have a filter at all. Oh, you can only imagine what that would be like in real time. But genuinely, on the court, they can play as well as possible and still not accomplish getting an NBA Finals appearance, let alone a ring. Players could want their money, because Anthony Edwards still has to get paid. Big time. But, if they can keep this thing together, if everyone is bought into winning, in the same way that Anthony Edwards himself just had to watch the Knicks and his former running mate in Karl Anthony Towns deal with, then yeah, watch out, NBA. Because the Timberwolves, by that point, they would be coming. And they can last. They can last if that happens. Only if that happens. But it's a massive setup for them right now. And then for the Hornets to get into their side, to again be fair, talk about it on both ends, as I was kind of alluding to, you have so much other promising talent here. And to the point where with one of the assets that you also had in the vault, you just drafted Christian Anderson Jr. congratulations. There's a real possibility now that Christian Anderson Jr. could see real playing time this season. They have Coby White listed as the point guard for them this season. And they flip-flopped this depth chart all over the place after the LaMelo Ball trade. It completely changed everything. They have Naz Reid backing up Miles Bridges, which I would expect to happen. Because again, Miles Bridges himself, I'm not going to say that he is like that much better than Naz Reid. I'm not going to say that. But Miles Bridges' defensive effort has been much improved over the past few seasons. And you do value that, along with that, his athleticism, along with his ability to now all of a sudden play make. You value that over Naz Reid's sole responsibility as a scorer. Like, it really all came to a head for Miles Bridges this last season. At 17.1 points per game, sure, but also 3.2 assists on a near-career low 1.4 turnovers per game, 5.8 rebounds, and 46% shooting from the field. Like, that's really promising to see from Bridges. So, as much as you like Naz Reid, and as much as Naz Reid might have expected in this trade to take on a starting role, nah. Like, he will still serve as a sixth man. But they needed that. Because, looking at the depth chart when LaMelo Ball was still there, like, yes, the second unit is still getting built out a little bit. But, compared to having Grant Williams be the backup four, as inconsistent as he is, I think we would much rather take our chances with Naz Reid at the backup four position and as a sixth man to give us a bit more offensive firepower off the bench at the front court position. Just adding a little more depth for us in that spot. And that is going to be instantly beneficial to all parties involved on this Hornets team. Entire complexion of the roster changed. In fact, to the point where they even have Hennis Steinbeck starting over the likes of Moussa Diabate and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Just an intriguing, young, and fun Hornets roster, trying to keep it going. I think with them moving on from LaMelo Ball, it does send a message for them. Because in ways, while it might be wise to say, okay, seeing what this team accomplished, we can do it without LaMelo Ball. I've been saying that the whole time. That's a totally different thing than arguing that this isn't all about LaMelo Ball. And that this team, as a combined unit, can do far more playing for each other out there than needing to rely on LaMelo Ball to be healthy one night, than relying on LaMelo Ball to put up all of these different shots on one particular night. Rather, blending it together with a truly unified collective that can go out there and win at a high level. What did the sample size of one of their better win streaks over the past decade plus show us? That this team, as young as they are, can dig deep within themselves and don't need the guise of having an unreliable superstar leading the way for them. That they can, by themselves, put on their bootstraps and carry each other to the same goal. That is what they are sending by letting LaMelo Ball walk. Even if he is a franchise star, the face of that team. He is not bigger than the program that they are trying to build right now, and can continue building for years to come with the kinds of picks that they had. Now again, for a combined 4 first-round picks to still be far less than the Jazz got back for Rudy Gobert is fucking crazy. But we're still here. All those picks, a 2033 first rounder, unprotected, and 3 first round pick swaps, all of them in ways are contingent, really, on how good or bad the Timberwolves are. The Timberwolves, with this deal, they expect to not only be in win now mode immediately, they expect to be consistent contenders. Whether that be for a title or not. Consistent contenders. For a great number of years in a row. Considering how young those two are. And as long as they have those two, they're good. You're just trying to build a team around them. So they are more than content with sending all those picks away. They may not end up being highly valuable for the Hornets at all. Especially when it comes to the pick swaps. It's all going to come down to, for that, I believe, it is typically who has the worst record. And more often than not, it could go a number of different ways here. So that won't be perfect for them. But shit. A haul of draft capital, along with the 3 second rounders as well, to put in your arsenal for the next few years to come, on top of satisfying this idea of, refining all these rough edges on this team. Couldn't have worked out for them any better. You got a very promising core with the assets that you've picked up over the past few years. And even with some that, hadn't played, that are now likely to get a little more of an opportunity. Zion James should see his minutes increase. They even have Trey Mann backing up the shooting guard position here. So it's going to be good to see him get back out there and play. And you also have Liam McNeely with an opportunity, potentially, to get back into the rotation. So again, all these guys satisfying the youth movement here. And getting an opportunity to lead this Hornets team for the next few years. Even if, the responsibility of a franchise guy might shift. It's about the team. It's about how they gel together. And they're just going to be getting loose out there on a night-to-night basis, while the Hornets themselves may actually have something worth cheering about, instead of being mired in mediocrity and uncertainty about the status of their best players. So that's what that deal comes down to for me. And it makes it even better considering that now, with them offloading the contract of LaMelo Ball in the same way that the Timberwolves were able to do by getting Julius Randle off their books, right after that, they signed Coby White to a 3-year, $74 million contract extension. Also, earlier in the morning, per Shams Charania. Now again, having Coby White step in as a point guard for LaMelo Ball, you kind of had a similar thing going on here with him in Chicago, taking on that responsibility and not coming out with the highest level of success that those guys would intend. But at the same time, again, it's the going rate for role players out there. You're not asking for, you're not asking for him to be this 20 points per game scorer like LaMelo Ball was. But from him, you're expecting solid defense. You're expecting a quality three-point shot. And even more valuable than that, this is a hometown kid in Coby White, leading the way for this team. Not necessarily as a franchise leader, but as a fan favorite that not many people, honestly, are going to be mad at rallying around, considering the connections that he has. It's not going to be hard to find yourself rooting for him or for anyone on this team. So him signing that deal makes a ton of sense from that standpoint. And you're not glossing over that too much. That's money well spent from your perspective. So just a bombshell of a deal to have in the morning. Meanwhile, people were thinking that, hey, Jaylen Brown was going to be out of there. And that situation in and of itself is also something that just keeps on taking turn after turn for whatever reason at this point. Just fuck it, that's kind of the level we're getting at with that there. But what a move. And again, I'm literally just getting woken up by that shit. Wow, that's crazy to have happen. Genuinely, you can't make up literally being asleep and then seeing that in the morning just for the fuck of it. It's crazy. But with that, and I guess not having anything else seemingly new to report, even though we're clearly, with a move like that, deep into the NBA offseason already. You gotta love it. There were some other things to pick up from yesterday. That, again, with that trade just coming in, it's that's the priority. I'm just gonna cover that immediately because it's worth doing so right then in the moment. But the Lakers would also do something yesterday that I think is pretty admirable for the individual in question, as they would sign Austin Reaves to a 4-year, $185 million max contract with a player option in 2029. The way that it was being discussed across several places is that, as the trades were getting underway prior to this move, and with the Lakers seeing everything that had happened around the league, a lot of the other teams that were in the running for the rights to Austin Reaves, aside from the Pistons, who had apparently been knocking on the door, they were out of the running. And it gave room for the Lakers to commit to a deal that virtually no other team by that point, by being out of the running, could even agree to, could even give Austin Reaves up to that point. It was either a deal like this or a deal worth 5 years and $241 million, which would have been oh my goodness, you're giving all that to Austin Reaves? No. Go back to the drawing board. There's no way you're giving him that kind of contract. Yes, it's just the extra year in question, but by him actually taking the 4-year, $185 million deal, even if it seems like an overpay, the Lakers are saving money by doing it. And now they just need to ensure that to effectively build out the roster, they try to get other players on the same page, which means Luka Doncic, who is on the books and on pace to get a 5-year, $417 million deal, and LeBron James, who is still actively working out negotiations right now, maybe you gotta start taking a little bit of a pay cut and getting some of that money elsewhere. Maybe. Just saying, just a thought. For Austin Reaves specifically, for the man to be undrafted in 2021 at pretty much the age of 23, he has pretty much had the odds stacked against him since being in the NBA. By no means was he ever expected to flourish into an important player, let alone a 10th player on the rotation of any team in the NBA to this point. He was just supposed to be a filler, a throw-in on a roster for any given team. And since he has entered the NBA, especially over the past 4 seasons in the league, he has seen his opportunities increase for this Lakers team, maybe by circumstance, but also through hard work during this time. And it culminated in an NBA season last year where Austin Reaves, if not for injury, likely would have qualified for an All-NBA team, and I would think he would be an All-NBA third-teamer if he was fully healthy during this time. He had a year that was his favorite season by far, to use that same kind of logic, right? 23.3 points per game on 49% shooting and 36% shooting from deep, along with 5.5 assists. The production by that point was no longer an anomaly. This had been year after year over year of consistent rise, of consistent increase from a man in Austin Reaves, who again was a UDFA. With this contract, he and Fred VanVleet of the Rockets are now on the books for having the 2 most expensive contracts for undrafted free agents ever. Ever. Something that will rarely happen for a man who is not selected formally in the NBA has now started to happen for Fred VanVleet with Houston. And people were saying that that was an overpay. Now people are flipping it to understanding just how important Fred VanVleet was for that Houston team as a playmaker. So the same thing can be true for Austin Reaves right now as an offensive machine for this Lakers squad. And consider everything that we've been saying for the past few months, I guess, and a year and some change now, since the Luka Doncic trade. The second that the deal was made, what were people echoing? That he and Austin Reaves, for the next decade, could be the duo for that Lakers franchise. And now you get one step closer to securing it by giving Austin Reaves this contract, which I think, when you take all that into consideration, is well-deserved and far from an overpay. For him, individually, it's a lot of money to look at for the Lakers. But again, they could do it. They could throw the money out there. No other team was going to be able to match what they could put forth, aside from the Pistons. And they'll be brought up in a second. With it, hey, now the Lakers have their man, their running mate, with Luka Doncic for at least the next 10 years. And there is real value in still retaining that. Like Austin Reaves himself, you look at that and you see he's 28 years old. It's only just a couple years older than Luka Doncic. Offensively, you're not going to find too many backcourts in the NBA that would be better in terms of overall production. They are both players that can handle the ball at a high level and can play make at a high level. And Austin Reaves as well is good enough off the ball to work alongside Luka Doncic. Good enough to, create his own shot without needing the ball in his hands. And can also set up other players efficiently enough to get their own open looks. Both of them can do that. Now, the timing of it could be questioned. You can hold the injuries against Austin Reaves. And you can also hold the fact that Austin Reaves was virtually in that series against the Thunder. He was horrible. Both things can be true at the same time. Like, genuine. He did not play well in this series overall. You know, it's what have you done for me lately, league? I understand that. And, you know, you look at it for Austin Reaves in this series against the Thunder. He was coming off of an injury, but, you know, he was expected, with not having Luka Doncic there still, to be the focal point of the offense, to at least flank LeBron James with necessary help. And he shot just 30.4% from 3 across the series. 20.8 points per game is seemingly all right, but again, the efficiency was just shot. And against a Thunder team that you couldn't afford to make mistakes against, those missed shots were worth everything. So, you know, that doesn't paint Austin Reaves in the best picture with his most recent performance before the deal. But to that I say, with better health, you could get far more from Austin Reaves. I think that's fair to say. And a lot of people as well are right in that, with them making this pairing as well, that defensive backcourt licking my damn chops. Those two are right now, as we're speaking, they have teams salivating at the mouth, especially in the Western Conference, looking to face off against them next season because they're going to get fried. They're going to get fried. You know, like, just being fair to the Ball-Edwards pairing, with that even if you want to say that Ball is a defensive liability, which he absolutely is, there's no reason that RJ, Richard Jefferson, had the gall to say that he was a solid defender at his position. That is an utter lie. Edwards, at least, can complement Ball very well in that backcourt with the two-way ability that he possesses. We can't even come remotely close to saying that about Austin Reaves or Luka Doncic. And that's despite Luka Doncic saying that he wanted to put more energy into becoming better conditioned and refining his defensive capability. At times you saw it. At times. But he's still a liability. And Reaves, with the size, as long as he's giving you effort, that's one thing. But the size on Austin Reaves puts him at a massive disadvantage as well. So they're going to get fried all up and down the court by opposing offenses next season. That is the trick for the Lakers. You know, yes, these players have to get their money. That is true. But can you still build a roster around them that is going to have enough defensive talent on it for them to survive and focus solely on giving you that great offensive firepower that you will need? Because the second you can balance that out with players who will hold it down on the other end, oh, you're good. Oh, you're good. You're golden. That's going to be the trick for this Lakers team. Moving on from that to the Pistons, who again, by proxy, they were apparently in the running for Austin Reaves. And, you know, that fit would make sense as a guy who can take the pressure off of Cade Cunningham and who can be a secondary ball handler for Cade Cunningham, a secondary creator for Cade Cunningham, and one who could get their own shot. That did not come to be with the Lakers giving him this deal. And so, you know, looking at them, understanding that, hey, they had a great year. They have been on a great rise. But, you know, them going out early in the second round, considering that they could have won that series against the Cavaliers, they had a lot of things to think about. And with them, seeing how Paul Reed, played during that series. Just think about this lasting image, okay? Paul Reed was getting all the love in the postseason for this Detroit team and from J.B. Bickerstaff in the rotation. Meanwhile, Isaiah Stewart, a man who was possibly on pace for an all-defensive team in the regular season, all of a sudden, he became unplayable in that playoff series. Now, by no means are we saying that his role was going to completely diminish. I mean, over the past couple of seasons, he had gotten less and less attention as a starter, yet was still giving them solid production as a defensive player off the bench. That much was true for Detroit. But that Cavs series specifically, I mean, he just was not heard from. And so, you take that into account, reflect on it, and then look at what happened yesterday night, and it makes sense. The Pistons officially traded Isaiah Stewart to the Grizzlies in exchange for 3 future second-round picks. Damn. They chose to go with the hot hand. And yes, they still have to pay Jalen Duren in some fashion. But with Paul Reed displaying that in the playoffs, on the highest stage, with their season on the line, I mean, that you can't necessarily blame the Pistons there. You can't blame them. As good as Isaiah Stewart apparently is on both ends of the floor, the value had just been diminishing over the years. And a guy who was literally shooting 38% from three-point range for them in 2023 got right at league average. So even his best strength on offense wasn't even to the same level that it once was, just a couple of years ago. Things can change drastically. And, from that standpoint, it's as great of a player as he has been for us, we got to figure out a way to improve. And that would be one of the better ways to make it happen. When you look past just the lone series, even when you just look past the lone series against the Cavs, in all of his 15 games in the playoffs, he'd never been asked to start. Now, again, they just made the one playoff game in 2024, or he played in just one playoff game in 2024. So again, I guess they just never really, by the time it got to him playing in the postseason, they just never had the intention of really giving him those chances. And even in that one game in 2024, he had 5 fouls. In the playoff series against the Cavs, he struggled with foul trouble. And that's what forced him ultimately out of the lineup entirely. As unfortunate as that may be. So, I mean, damn. Now, the Grizzlies, with that, the Pistons get a decent amount of draft capital here. It's not anything of crazy value, but, you can get yourself another guy, potentially, similar to this, in the second round in the future if you are desperately looking for it. If you're Detroit, like your odds at searching for that better than keeping the man right now. So second round picks are not anything crazy for the Pistons, especially if they're going to keep on taking this rise as a potential playoff team for the next few years. But, you're looking to find guys who can add to the roster here and who can give you that bench production that you'd been missing. And that creation alongside Cade Cunningham that just was non-existent. They don't particularly add that in this specific trade. But by subtraction, you get a player off your books who was just not even much of a factor for you. The Grizzlies, on the other hand, and in terms of having Stewart come off the bench, having him potentially show Boozer the ropes as a defender, that is going to be his greatest value for this Grizzlies team. It gives them an enforcer that the Memphis team has not had since, this is perfect for them. You get him for the low, like fuck those second round picks. We're getting Isaiah Stewart to come to our team to provide that kind of defense for us in those spot minutes whenever Boozer may be off the floor, and to provide that unit with Edey sometimes and potentially him on the court at the same time. You're just asking for immediate clamps. Again, they have not had an enforcer, if you will, quote unquote, for that team with the Grizzlies since Dillon Brooks. Now you bring Isaiah Stewart into the equation. Let a nigga try to fuck with that team. Isaiah Stewart will literally leap over people. He will run over his own staff just to get a hold of a dude and punch the shit out of him. That is what he will do. And for that young team that doesn't necessarily possess that right now, they need that. They need the physicality, and they might need a little bit of the negativity. They might need it. They've been itching for it for years. They didn't have it for years, and they've been losing as a result. Now they have a chance to add that back in for just 3 second-round picks. I don't give a fuck about those picks. We got Isaiah Stewart on our team. And it's an added bonus if he can regain the ability to stretch the floor like he once did at an elite level. Like, you just make a wing unit that, again, when you think about it, the Jalen Wellses, the Cedric Coward, Cameron Boozer, like, these guys are all young wings. They don't have, aside from Boozer maybe, a lot of strength, a lot of muscle on them. Even when you go further into the unit, Santi Aldama is very lanky. G.G. Jackson II is compact, but also lanky for his size, and not really a factor in the rotation right now. So that is a need for them more than they would think. And from that standpoint alone, I'd already say the Grizzlies got the better end of the deal here. You can say that both teams got what they wanted. Both teams. You are getting a player who you think is on the decline off your team, but on the other end, for the Grizzlies, he gonna fit our culture well. Come right in. We welcome you. We welcome you, young man. Like, legitimately, Isaiah Stewart, for him to be as young as he is, looks like one of the older players in the league. I promise you. He's just 25 years old. Just recently turned 25 years old. But, man, come right in, man. We're going to get you right, man. Best believe that. And then for the last of the moves here, the Warriors had Al Horford decline his player option and then signed him to a 2-year, $14 million deal. Like, really, bro? Okay. But, yeah, let me see just in a quick second if there is anything else. we're getting into a crazy time for the NBA. So I just gotta check and see real quick if there are any other news that I need to take into account.